It's time for Hanukkah.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Let it play. That's pretty good, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, I never know what music's going to play, but that was I was kind of guessing. I thought like Havana Gila, something.
No. We do something more creative.
That was pretty good. Welcome on today, the first day of Hanukkah.
Yes, it is.
Oh, our Jewish advisor in the studio is not correcting me.
I know.
Hanukkah.
Oh, okay. He's intently looking at the computers. Tom Trento here, Enemies of the State, the name of the show, coming at you on WSBR, W Sunny Boca Raton Radio 740 on the dial, on the AM dial. But we are a television show, ladies and gentlemen, so you can watch us on DirecTV through extras. If you're hooked up to the internet, go to YouTube, look at our website, theunitedwest.org, and you can see us in high definition. And every one of my little gray hairs you can actually see. Should I dye my hair? Should I dye like...
Well, it's a lot better than fuzzy tone.
Should I dye it like... You ever see those people that dye their hair like... completely black? It looks completely ridiculous now. I enjoy the later
the season
years
look.
Of my
The
life. Yes,
season
the
look.
season look. I enjoy that.
The well-mellowed look.
Yes, but wonderful show today. We have. He's too intent. Our guy who usually says what's going on is just intently pushing buttons. We have today. We're going to focus on Hanukkah, which is not only a phenomenal supernatural event that took place 2,000 years ago, 2,165 or so, but has tremendous historical significance and tremendous application to today. We have two special guests with us. One, a dear friend from the Sarasota, Florida area, Gene Sweeney. You'll hear from him in a moment. He's behind an amazing memorial, the Todah Memorial, that recognizes those brave men and women who helped liberate the death camps in World War II. So we're going to take a look at that. And the Todah Menorah Menorah, and that application that's taking place this week. And then later in the show, we have another dear friend, Ambassador Henry Cooper, who worked in the Reagan administration. Actually, and he's here with us live, folks.
Yes, he is.
On the phone connection. Actually was in Geneva for many years, negotiating with the Ruskies. We won't get into that story today, but it's a fabulous story. But Ambassador Cooper last year wrote a very insightful piece drawing connections between the Maccabees, the family that are behind the Hanukkah miracle,
right,
and an application to our history, the United States history, with many of our leaders who were motivated by the Maccabee story. And we're going to ask Ambassador Cooper to share some of his thoughts and insights on that. So sit back, folks. We have a show that will have very deep historic significance for Jews, Christians, and other students of history. But more importantly, with the Islamic Jihad world turning even more aggressively against Jerusalem, against Jewish people worldwide, against Christians. This show will serve as a springboard to the kind of spirit necessary that needs to be found in all men and women who are going to stand against the Islamic onslaught as articulated today by the Islamic State, as seen yesterday in Australia with a horrible hostage situation there, and even more today on the 16th of December over in Pakistan with the Taliban, in order to teach the Muslims who aren't following the Sharia a lesson, slaughtered over 100 school children. This is military doctrine rooted in Sharia Islam, folks, and this is what we're fighting. And it's coming to a neighborhood near you in the near future. But right now, let's bring on Gene Sweeney. Gene is a veteran. We've worked with Gene on many occasions. He sponsored us speaking over in Venice at Patriots Park, where he and his team assembled a tribute to the 9/11 folks who have died. Phenomenal memorial there. But right now, Gene's been working on another memorial. Gene, you are the go-to guy for great memorials in the state of Florida. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, and great always, Tom, to be in your company, whether we're physically side by side or distanced by the internet.
Yeah, thank you for agreeing to appear. I know you're on a tight schedule today, but we are fascinated by Todah Memorial. Please tell the folks what that is and how it came about. We have a short video that you guys put together. After you set it up, we'll show the video.
Okay, fair enough. Actually, the word Todah, T-O-D-A-H, simply means thank you in Hebrew. And the memorial is really the brainchild of my partner, Phil Berkowitz. Phil woke up one day and while he was taking some personal hygiene, shaving and that sort of stuff, it dawned on him, why am I alive? And being of the Jewish faith and history and family, he came to the reality that if it were not for the liberators, there would be no survivors. And he simply said to himself, why am I here? Ergo, we teamed together and we commissioned an artist, and Phil's direction built the Todah Menorah Memorial, which we are going to be taking on tour throughout the United States, a very similar model to the Vietnam Moving Wall.
Okay.
It is a tribute to the Allied forces, and I can in great length, but I won't. It's a tribute to all of those who were saved, to all of those who saved them.
Oh, amazing. And we need to mention that your partner is a Jewish fellow and you are a Christian fellow, and you guys collaborated on this.
An Irish Catholic with a Jewish boy, and we're both from Brooklyn.
There you go. Beautiful combination. Well, we're going to show the video right now. It really is a masterful piece that explains the project quite well. Then we want you, when we come back, Gene, to tell the folks what's taking place next and where they can actually see this and how they can get it to their neighborhood. But right now, the Todah Memorial Menorah. Check it out.
Have you ever looked in the mirror and wondered what your legacy in life will be? That's exactly what villager Phil Berkowitz was doing when he decided to put a lavish indulgence on hold and instead mark the memory and courage of men and women who walked into one of the greatest atrocities in history. Borrowing from the familiar Hanukkah menorah, a symbol of Jewish celebration, this is the moving story of the extraordinary Toda Menorah.
At this time in my life, I have no heirs. This is my legacy. I was going to buy a Mercedes supercar. One morning I was shaving and looking in the mirror, and I said to myself, why am I? Circumstances could have been if I was in Europe, I wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be looking in the mirror. So who do I owe that I'm alive? It's the soldiers who sacrificed their lives saving the Jewish people.
The liberators in 1944 consisted of the Russians and the British and the Canadians. The United States came in to become a liberation force in 1945.
Well, I'm considered a liberator. I was with the 30th Infantry Division in April of 1945. In fact, the entire war, we had no inkling of what a concentration camp was. We never heard anything about that until we came across this little town of Farsleben, and there we found this train of 2,500 Jews, and that was our first experience with the Holocaust.
The symbolism is there are 3 British soldiers. They were the first to actually combat the Nazis from the Allied forces, followed by 3 Soviet soldiers. They were the next, and the final were the 3 Americans. And those are the 9 lights in a typical menorah. The Star of David was found broken, shot full of holes, cracked, and was in the ashes of the Holocaust. And the 3 hands signify the hands of the fallen lifting it up. And when it gets to a vertical position, God strikes it like with lightning and welds it together, and it will never fall again.
Todah, T-O-D-A-H, which in Hebrew means thank you. The significance is to thank those liberators of the greatest generation who gave everything, and we're losing them. They are a treasure that will never be replaced. What our mission is and what our future plans are to take this and have 5 placed around the world. 1 in the United States, 1 in Canada. The Canadian troops fought under the British flag, the British and the Russians, and of course we're going to have a Todah Memorial in Israel. Our theme of the Liberator Foundation is to preserve, to honor, and to educate. Ergo, the purpose is to have a moving Todah Menorah Memorial travel throughout the country. And that is strictly by donations and sponsors that would like to have that somewhere in the United States, and we are open.
It's quite important because it's something as a reminder to the younger generation today that they should never let this happen again.
The fine details found in the Toda Menorah were inspired by historic wartime relics, and the final sculpture weighs approximately 1,300 pounds. As many of the liberators are now in their 90s or have since passed, Berkowitz and Sweeney realize they're up against the clock in their efforts to tour the existing Toda Menorah, as well as fulfill their dream of funding, creating, and placing the additional tributes. For more information about donating, sponsoring, or hosting the menorah, you can visit liberatorfoundation.org.
Wow.
Well, that was a good video. That was a
Wow,
really good video.
very, very good.
Yep.
Gene,
Highly impressed. Yeah.
Excellent job, Gene. It looked like, folks, Tom Trento here, Enemies of the State, 18 minutes after 4 o'clock on the East Coast. West Coast, whatever time it's out in California, I think you're 3 hours away, something like that. Friends over in Israel, what is it, 11 o'clock at night watching the show? Thank you for doing that. The show's growing. Keep sending it out.
Hey, tell us about the growth.
Twitter it out. We could.
Gene
we could
can listen to us.
We're gonna be expanding our radio show over to the West Coast area. Gene, out there, you'll be able to pick us up on your local radio. Got some good stuff coming ahead. But right now, at 19 minutes after, very moving piece. We have Gene Sweeney on from the Sarasota area. He is one of the prime movers of the Toda, the Thank You Memorial Menorah. Gene, it looked like you got a little choked up when you were doing that interview there, sir.
It's impossible not to. I guess I wear my heart on my sleeve, and it's this tribute is, as I've mentioned, to the greatest generation and our veterans of World War II, the liberators, and we're losing them at 550 plus per day, which is a recent statistic. And Major Frank Towers is an incredible individual. We've done about a half a dozen of these presentations, and Major Towers he's 97 years young.
Wow.
And he does a presentation totally erect, standing up, no PowerPoint, with a pointer, and he goes through the towns and villages where he went through in when he was what is referred to as a Buttabar lieutenant, which is a second lieutenant, and he's an absolutely incredible guy, and I just can't wait to be back in his company. Wow. We have been endorsed, and we're very excited that the the Jewish Federation of Sarasota and Manatee, along with the Shabbat of Sarasota, has welcomed us and invited us to this Sunday's event. And there'll be close to 5,000 people
Wow.
at the Sarasota Fairgrounds this Saturday, which is a free admission, by the way, of which the Toda Menorah will be on public viewing from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock. We're very excited and very pleased that the Jewish community, the interfaith community, and the military community have all rallied around this incredible tribute, which will be going on tour. And people are welcome to contact
Gene,
me.
I want to get the date out for everybody. That's Saturday the 20th.
Sunday the 21st.
21st from 1 to 4 at the Sarasota Fairgrounds in Sarasota, Florida. Free parking, free admission, and it is sponsored by the Jewish Federation of Sarasota Manatee, Shabbat of Sarasota, and along with the community foundations as well that have really rallied to come together. This is both the 70th anniversary, by the way. Today is the 70th anniversary of the Battle of the Bulge.
Today,
the 70th anniversary of when the first liberators went in. Those were the British and the Russians in 1944, followed by the Americans who came in 2015. So we're coming up on our 70th anniversary, and also 2015 is the anniversary of the end of World War II.
Wow, amazing. Hey, Gene, if somebody's watching this, and we have listeners and viewers all over, we're on the radio, WSBR, 740 AM, broadcasting in South Florida. On the internet, we're on iHeartRadio, we're at theunitedwest.org, teapartycommunity.com. We're all over the place, Breitbart TV. Somebody's watching this or listening, and they go, I got to have this thing in my own hometown. I want to sponsor an event where we can bring this in. What do they need to do? We only got about a minute left with you.
Okay.
How do people contact you? How do they get involved?
Okay, you can go to the Liberator Foundation, www.liberatorfoundation.org. We are a not-for-profit organization, filed for 501c3 status. Also, on the website and the Facebook page as well is liberatorfoundation.org is our Facebook. And by the way, there is available for those that would like an identical replica of the full Toda Menorah Memorial, which is a miniature, which is 16 inches oval by 32 in length, with 9, including the Star of David, battle crosses, an identical replica that is also available on the website for donations. So rather than pay for it, if you donate it, it's a tax-deductible item. Go to our website, go to our Facebook. My phone contact information is there, and they can arrange to have the Todah Menorah Memorial. We are now speaking with, and we hope to have a final decision with the Dallas, Texas Holocaust Museum that is reviewing an extended Todah Menorah exhibit, of which we are available to have the Todah Menorah on display at any location throughout the United States.
Beautiful. That is tremendous. We are going to order one of those. We're moving into a new studio in about 2 months. I think, guys, this would be a tremendous little piece to have in the studio.
Yes, it would.
We're out of time with you, but I got one last question. We need to wrap it up pretty quickly. You mentioned you want to bring this to Israel. We go back and forth to Israel, and we're going, in fact, March 21st of this year on a 10-day fact-finding mission. Do you have any plans that are set that are public yet with the Israeli connection?
We are speaking with a few individuals, of course, the organization. We're also, the dyes, the molds are available, and we suggested to our Israeli counterparts that want to participate in this that they can have, for a fee, of course, is to have the Todah Menorah Memorial cast in bronze in Israel by an Israeli foundry, and they're going to be working with us, and the molds are available to any organization that would like to have an identical replica. If they contact me, we can put the pieces together.
Beautiful. This is a phenomenal effort on your part, Mr. Philip Berkowitz. Give him our best. I mean, his inspiration to put this, and working with you, the go-to guy that gets things done.
He's a real mensch.
Yes, he is. He's a mensch.
God bless you all. A very happy holiday, happy Hanukkah, and a very Merry Christmas to our viewers as well. This is truly an interfaith offering.
All right, and it absolutely is. Thank you, Gene Sweeney, Sarasota. And thank you for your service, Gene, for sure.
Thank you, Gene.
All right, take care. All right, 26 minutes after 4 o'clock. That's pretty cool. I would love to go see the thing in person, and very detailed, very involved, and all because a guy was going to buy a Mercedes supercar, and that's a pretty heavy-duty purchase.
Yep.
Said, I'm going to get another car. What am I going to do with that? I want to have a legacy. I want to do some good in life, and this thing is inspiring already.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Another
It really is.
individual that
That's
is
right.
completely inspiring is another dear friend of ours.
Yes,
He's
he
what,
is.
92 years young himself, and like the gentleman in that video, our next guest, who isn't here in person, we will bring Ambassador Cooper on in a little bit. He is here live on the phone. But when we put this together, this show, we said, hey, we know a liberator. In fact, we did a documentary, a short documentary about Mr. William Langfan, who went through the Battle of the Bulge and then wound up at Buchenwald and liberated those in the death camp. And Mr. William Langfan is Jewish himself, an American Jew fighting in the United States Army through the Battle of the Bulge, 70th anniversary today, liberating people of his blood. Let's take a short look at a little piece we did about
Bill,
a year
how
or
did
so
you
ago.
go from a teenager arguing against Hitler to finding yourself in the United States Army as one of the liberators at Buchenwald Nazi death camp? How did that happen?
I was at university, and on December 7th, 1941, everything changed very, very dramatically. I went through basic training, and the next thing you know, I was in Liverpool. And we stayed there for a while, and all of a sudden, buzz bombs started coming over, and we were in the anti-aircraft part of the Army, and we were shooting against buzz bombs. And it was quite an experience. Then we were on our way to Normandy, and we landed in around Saint-Lô, which was the Omaha beachhead, and we still had not broken out of the hedgerows, and a few days after we landed at Normandy, we broke out of the hedgerows and started moving through France very, very quickly. We were with Patton's army. And before we know it, we were in Belgium, and we were at the middle of the Battle of the Bulge at Bastogne. And then we started going east through Germany. And all of a sudden, one day, we wound up at Buchenwald. And it was something that was beyond my imagination, what they told me.
Wow.
It appeared that most of the men and boys had died of starvation.
Yeah.
They had not been executed.
That's
Edward Murrow.
But the manner of death seemed unimportant. Murder had been done at Buchenwald. God alone knows how many men and boys have died there during the last 12 years. As I left that camp, A Frenchman who used to work for Havas in Paris came up to me and said, "You will write something about this, perhaps." And he added, "To write about this, you must have been here at least 2 years. And after that, you don't want to write anymore."
Yeah, that's pretty...
Yeah, and Edward R. Murrow, listen to that voice.
Yeah, sure.
Over the radio. You guys got to feel in Radio Land what it would have been like in 19... Oh, wow.
With him.
Yeah.
We showed you just a couple of minutes of a little documentary we did about Mr. William Langfan. Mark, if people want to see the rest of that, and I think they do if they watch that.
Yeah,
how do
a
they
soldier's
do that?
warning. Just Google a soldier's warning. A soldier's warning. And put in there the United West, and it'll pop right up with Bill Langfan. And it actually did really well.
It's on YouTube, so
Yep.
go to YouTube, A Soldier's Warning, Bill Langfan, Langfan. Really a very, very good piece, and he's an amazing guy still.
His son's a pretty good writer, too.
Yeah,
Does the
Mark
maps.
Langfan, the map man. He produces all the high-tech geospatial and geographical mapping that's used to study the military situation of Israel and the the necessity of key military points that the Israelis must hold on to, like the Golan Heights. So father and son, both lawyers, New York and Florida, just really making a contribution to America. And the beauty of this on today, the first day of Hanukkah, is that the Jewish community is going to be celebrating over the next, how many days, Damon?
8 days.
8 days. Going to be celebrating the miracle of Hanukkah. And just briefly, to put the historical situation in the context, going back to Alexander the Great. We can forget about that right now. Alexander the Great ruled. He studied, believe it or not, under Aristotle. Alexander the Great studied under Aristotle. This goes back to the 300 BCs, and you're not going to see it in there, so don't worry about that anymore. Studied under Aristotle until he was 16 years old. Then he advanced very, very quickly in the military. Died at 32 years old. But during that time period of 16 years, you talk about accomplishing things. 16 years, he led the Greeks, essentially. It was the Greeks. To the Greek Empire to control the known world at that point. A phenomenal warrior that all kinds of victories against the various armies. And after he died, his kingdom broke into 4 or 5 different pieces. I'm simplifying the history that leads up to the Maccabees. One of those areas that broke up, you're not going to find it in there. Oh, yeah, maybe you will. One of those areas that broke up was Syria and Egypt, and then the land of Judea. In Israel, Judea is from Jerusalem south, Samaria is from Jerusalem north, basically. And Judea became under the control of Syria, simplifying this. And King Antipas Epiphanes the fourth actually it was, he hated the Jews. Now he took over where Alexander the Great had sympathy for the Jews in Judea. King Antipas III really hated the Jews. So what he did was he changed all the rules. Forget about that thing right now. Yeah. He hated all the Jews. He changed the laws and said, Jews, now he's controlling, the Syrians are controlling Judea. It's about 180, 170 BC. And he says, Jews can no longer be circumcised. You can't have synagogues anymore. You can't worship anymore. You can't pray anymore. He did what who is doing today?
The Muslims, people.
The Islamic State. The same thing the Islamic State is doing today. When they go into a land, they Islamize it. He Syrianized it for the Syrians. This predates Islam.
I thought we invented this Jew hatred, no?
Not quite. It existed before, which is why you guys got to stay close to God. He bails you out all the time. So now Israel, or Judea at that point, was just a place where Jews couldn't express anything. Well, one family, the Maccabee family, one family, what are you pointing to?
Nothing.
Oh, okay. One family just said, now this went on for years. One family said, this is crazy. Oh, there we got the Maccabee family up there. They said, this is not right. You know, God has ordained us to have this land. We understand that. He hasn't ordained us to capitulate to an evil enemy. Yeah, there's more of them than there are of us. But you know what? Our little group with the Lord of the universe, if we can't win, we got to die trying. And they launched basically an insurgency against the ruling body, the Syrians at that point. And they fought and they fought and they fought. This happened over many years. And then through the grace of God and a miraculous victory, they liberated the Jerusalem from the Syrians in 165 BC, before the Common Era, before Christ, used a couple of different ways. They liberated it, and in an effort now to thank God for their supernatural victory, which indeed it was, because they should not have beaten these guys, they went back to do one of their ritualistic efforts to thank God by lighting candles. The menorah goes back before the Festival of Lights, Hanukkah. It was used in religious ceremonies. Problem was there were 8 candles, and the main one in the center to light, just like you see behind me. Problem was they didn't have enough what?
Oil.
Yeah, no oil.
Wasn't enough oil. So they only had a little container of oil, enough for about one day. And they lit the main light, and they put oil in the first candle holder, you know, there, and they lit that. And the first day got lit, and then the second day came, and guess what they had?
Light.
They had oil. And they lit the second container of oil. These are candles there, so that's not really the way it worked 2,000 years ago. They had a little, you know, a little area for oil, with a little wick on it, and they lit the second day. And they lit the third day. And they still have only this little tiny reserve of oil that should have been depleted, but it kept somehow having a sufficient amount of oil, and they actually sent people out to go get more oil. They had a 7-day victory over the Syrians. So they were going to recognize the miracle of a 7-day victory over the Syrians. But the oil lasted for 8 days. So they lit all 8 of the candelabra, with the main one in the center. And from that point on, the Maccabees, who were a fighting family, Maccabees means the hammer. In Hebrew, the name Maccabees means the hammer. These were tough men that were fighting. They basically started telling the story of God's provision and supernatural care for this family in battle to regain the temple, to cleanse the temple from Antiochus the third and fourth, who desecrated the temple by slaughtering pigs on the temple. They defeated the Syrians, cleaned up the temple, restored the worship services at the Second Temple, which stands right now on the Temple Mount in Israel, but the Jews aren't allowed to go there and pray. Figure that out.
I can tell you why it is called Islam.
Oh, yeah. Islam comes in about 800 years later, is victorious in Israel, and now controls the Temple Mount. Actually, the Jews control the Temple Mount, but somehow give control of the Temple Mount
to the Jordanians.
Yeah, to whatever. I don't know what all of that, how that works, but we do, folks. We know exactly how it works. We're trying to sort it all out. But on this day, at 40 minutes after 4 o'clock, on the first day of this Feast of Lights, celebrating not only the supernatural victory, but the historic elements of it, we have a very dear friend, Ambassador Henry Cooper, with us. I'm just going to go through his bio for a second. We don't have enough time to go through his whole bio.
It could take years.
It could. He's the chairman of the board of High Frontier. High Frontier is very important. Nonprofit, nonpartisan educational corporation formed to examine the concerns of a missile attack against the United States. I was in Israel a couple of weeks ago. There's great concern about missile attacks in Israel. Ambassador Henry Cooper is working on those issues here in the United States. He played a key role in developing the framework for President Reagan for his Strategic Defense Initiative. Remember that? The
SDI, yeah, Star Wars, yeah.
Yeah, he was involved in putting that together for the president. And as I said, and Hank Cooper and I spoke at an event a couple of years ago, and we went and shared a beer together afterwards with a few friends. And I got him to talk a little bit about his days in Geneva representing President Reagan, negotiating, nuclear proliferation and missile and ICBMs, all this with the Russians, with the Soviets at that point. Ambassador Cooper is an amazing piece of American history, a dear patriot, a solid American Christian. Wrote an article last year about the similarities and the influence of Hanukkah on great American heroes in American history. Ambassador Cooper, are you there with us on the phone, sir?
I am. Can you hear me?
We hear you perfectly. How are you today?
I'm doing just fine.
Thank you.
I've got a bit of an echo. I hope it won't disturb your feeling.
Yeah, I think we have another connection that's not muted. It's on the back end. I think the Gene Sweeney connection's still not muted on the back.
I could call him back in 1 second.
Who, Gene? Oh, Ambassador. Yeah. We're going to call you back so that we get a nice clean. We need to hear what you have to say. It's very important.
Okay.
We're gonna
call you right back.
All right.
That's live radio, folks.
Yeah, live
Sometimes
radio.
it ain't perfect.
42 minutes. Hey, I was watching some news, one of the networks this morning, and their satellite goes out, and they go,
I could be driving down the road listening to the biggest radio stations in town here, and it happens.
But the newsreaders then go blank because there's no teleprompter saying anything. Not here on Enemies of the State. No teleprompter for us. We know how to do this stuff and say it. But let me give you a little more background on our special
Don't forget
guest.
that Team B2 thing.
He's one of the authors,
That's
key
right.
authors of Sharia, the Threat to America, Team B2. But he also did a little bit of study. He holds a PhD from New York University in mechanical engineering, a bachelor's of science and a master's of science from Clemson, also mechanical engineering, taught at several universities. So he's an academic, patriot, and great American. Do we have a better connection with him right now?
I think we do.
Yes.
Can hear you fine.
Okay,
Yeah,
here
there
we go.
That's better. Okay.
Ambassador Cooper, you wrote a great article entitled, you wrote it last year, entitled, Where Are the Maccabees? Where are today's Maccabees? What inspired you to write that, and what was the thesis of that article you wrote?
Well, it's a couple of things. First of all, it was an unusual year, and someone pointed out to me that it had happened only once before, that the first day of Hanukkah occurred on the same day as Thanksgiving. And that struck me as extraordinary. It wouldn't happen again until about 80,000 years before they could be celebrated together. So I didn't know anything about Hanukkah. I'm a Christian like you, and I had studied the Old Testament and the New Testament, but the period you just discussed was between those eras. And the Maccabees were part of what's called the Apocrypha, I guess it is. And I didn't know anything about it. So I began to go on the web and just look up what Hanukkah was all about. And I discovered some extraordinary things that we Americans don't seem to appreciate. It's an 8-day festival, as you indicated. Last year was very unusual. This year is also unusual in that the 8th day ends up on Christmas Eve. And in any case, when I started looking into this, it made me think that, well, instead of saying Happy Holiday, which we do to sort of meld these things together, that we Christians ought to pay more attention to Hanukkah as well because of its important role in our founding, which was, I believe, heavily oriented toward not just the Judeo-Christian heritage, but Christian people as well. And what I discovered was quite impressive. I didn't know, for example, that George Washington at Valley Ford, with his ragtag army, was inspired by the story of Judah, the Maccabee, who led also a ragtag army against 80,000 Syrian troops in a guerrilla warfare, which, as you indicated, he was finally successful, or the Maccabees were finally successful. And Washington was inspired by this, and as we know, the battles began to turn in his favor and in our favor shortly thereafter. Other things in the history was that in God we trust, the language that's on our coin, whatever else, finds its history in this period of time. I didn't know, for example, that Judah, the individual I mentioned before, is among the heroes, the military heroes whose busts appear, statues in West Point, our military academy, which was founded in 1802.
Wait, Ambassador Cooper, say that again about West Point. I didn't quite catch all of that.
Judah the Maccabee, who was the leader of this ragtag army against the Syrians, his statue is along with the statues of Joshua and David, Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, Hector, King Arthur, Charlemagne, Geoffrey, William, among the 9 worthies, it's called, at West Point. And so, I mean, our early military leaders thought well of what went on with the Maccabees. No question about it.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Very interesting.
I thought it was a very interesting fact. And as I said before, I assume you caught it, it was a battle cry in God we trust that was adapted on our coinage. Patrick Henry's "Give me liberty or give me death" speech apparently had some linkage to this story of the Maccabees when we had this rabble bunch of what we now call patriots who pledged their life and all their worldly goods to taking on King George, who was a monarch of world power at the time. And basically, he was modeling after the Maccabees. So I just think we Americans ought to pay a little bit more attention to this and feel a little more comfortable about saying Happy Hanukkah to our Jewish friends, along with Merry Christmas, and not be ashamed of that. This year, by the way, if you count up, today is the first day of Hanukkah. The 8th day of Hanukkah is Christmas Eve.
Wow, that is pretty neat. Go ahead. I got a couple of questions.
Another article for Christmas Eve. Anyway.
Are those the statues right there?
Yes.
We're showing right now on our screen for our viewers at 48 minutes after 4 o'clock on WSBR. Tom Trento here, your host. Enemies of the State. Our special guest, Ambassador Henry Cooper, and he's referenced the fact that Judah Maccabee is in a statue at West Point, and we just had it up on the screen. There it is again, up on the screen, along with several other historic, outstanding military leaders. Ambassador Cooper, what do you make out of the irony of history? And you and I worked together with 17 others, led by Frank Gaffney, on Sharia, the threat to America, the threat doctrine of Islam. And since that book was produced 2 years ago, man, what dramatic changes for the worst we've had in the world with the Islamic State. What do you make out of the fact that we are recognizing the defeat of the Syrians by a small group of Jews 2,100 years ago, and again, the Syrians, though they're occupied with their own internal problems, would prefer to be attacking Israel, as many of its neighbors do today. What do you make out of the threats to Israel today in light of the fact that we're celebrating the beginning of Hanukkah?
Well, I think it's an astonishing fact that we're not paying attention to the history before us. We're not paying attention to our Christian heritage, and the Christian heritage which lies behind this country. We don't seem to appreciate the fact that we're confronting a mortal enemy. It's not unlike the time of the Maccabees. And as a matter of fact, that was the other part of my message last year. If you go to the webpage and look it up, it was on December the 5th, 2013, is that here it is, we were just beginning the negotiations with Iran, and people were talking about how we were going to stop them from getting nuclear weapons, and that just didn't look at all promising to me then, doesn't look promising to me now. And we seem to be abandoning we don't just seem to be abandoning, we are abandoning our ally, not only as a matter of faith an ally, but also our only friend in the Middle East, the only democracy there, in this great conflict. They're the little Satan, we're the big Satan, and Iran is going to come after both of us if they get, and when they get nuclear weapons. Some of us think they may already have them, and it's just a matter of time before they use them. But I think we have forgotten our heritage on many fronts.
Yes.
We're not paying attention to the real adversary that we face in the world. We can't even call him his name. Islam is our adversary.
Radical Islam.
No.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know, and we here on our show, we don't use a modifier. The threat doctrine comes from Islam, from the core doctrines of Islam. We understand that. Just as King Antiochus the third and fourth, actually two of them, tried to obliterate the Jews. The Iranians want to do that, and the Sunni side. What warning do you have as someone who has spent your academic, your professional, your government career considering missile technology and missile defense? What warning do you have to the world and to Israel if Iran gets nuclear capability with their ballistic missile already capability they have? What is your word of warning today to the West?
Well, you mentioned my role with SDI. You didn't mention that I was actually the director of that program during the first Bush years.
Oh, really?
And instrumental in beginning Israel's Arrow program and its missile defense capabilities. And I'm really impressed how well they've done. But the fact of the matter is that if the bad guys get their hands on nuclear weapons and they're willing to employ them to create an electromagnetic pulse, they don't necessarily have to get attack targets on the ground. They can set that weapon off at high altitude, 100 miles up, and basically create havoc and then attack with other weapons. In the case of Israel, in the case of the United States, we're totally vulnerable to such an attack, which would shut down our electric power grid for an indefinite period of time. And really competent people have estimated that millions, hundreds of millions of people, Americans, could die within a year for the lack of electricity. We don't think of that, but electricity stands behind practically everything in our just-in-time economy: our food, our money, our travel and transportation, our water. Even the sewers won't work. So you can just imagine what kind of a problem it would be with this kind of an attack. One nuclear weapon over the center of the United States can do it. And I just looked at what the Congress allegedly have agreed to now and is sending to the president for his signature this week. And what's in the defense bill for missile defense is not a penny being directed at working this problem. And we're completely vulnerable to it from missiles that can be launched off our coast, particularly from the Gulf of Mexico. We have absolutely no defense against it, and we're not spending a penny to do anything about it. So we're putting catastrophe in this country, and so is Israel. And we should be working with Israel against a common enemy in Iran and the Islamic jihadi hosts that are surrounding them, and we're just not we're playing the fool. That's what I think we're doing. We're playing the fool.
All right, you heard it first here, ladies and gentlemen, or you heard it here. I mean, Ambassador Cooper's been saying this for a while. It's 55 minutes. We only got a couple of minutes left. 55 minutes after 4 o'clock. Our special guest, Ambassador Henry Cooper, just warning the West that we are vulnerable to an EMP, electromagnetic pulse bomb, which can devastate. And we've done a lot of shows on this.
And it's not just the bomb, Tom.
No.
I mean, if the sun throws out a big old solar flare out there, I mean, which has happened before, but it happened when we weren't so interdependent upon our electrical grid. But right now, it's such a simple fix. The cost to fix that is minuscule. It's called Faraday cages, invented way back when, Michael Faraday. And it's a very simple solution. Why we don't do it, I don't know.
We'll be back to the picture behind me of these candles. Damon, you got one question, then we got to say goodbye to the ambassador.
Ambassador, I had a question. How do you feel about what is apparently U.S. cooperation with Iran in Iraq against ISIS, and how that might affect an eventual nuclear deal with Iran to Israel's detriment?
Well, I don't have any confidence in the UN, period, full stop. So I think we Americans had better pay attention to our own security and the security of our friends and allies. And certainly in my book, that includes Israel near the top of the list. And so, if not at the top of the list. And so I look with a cocked head at anything the UN is doing.
Yeah, Ambassador, the phone glitched out there for a second. He asked about Iran, the nation of Iran's involvement with the U.S. in Iraq. That little dance.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said the UN.
No, we have no comments UN either.
Oh, okay. Well, and the P5+1 negotiations. I thought that's what you were talking about.
No, I was talking about the Iranian Air Force.
Let him talk.
Okay.
I think again we're playing the fool. We shouldn't be doing this. And whether it's an explicit concurrence or not, we're actually, it seems to me, horse trading with Iran, applauding their quote help, and at the same time, I don't know what we're promising in return.
All right, Ambassador Henry Cooper, we thank you for your time. Here's what we're going to do, sir. You have been involved in the most high-tech of high-tech missile consideration technology, defensive, that the world has known. You're one of the top experts out there. But you got to get your Skype sorted out so we can see you, okay?
Well, I appreciate that.
Okay. Get your Skype sorted out. Get your Skype sorted out. After the first of the year, we'll bring you back. We'll do a whole show on EMP. How about that?
Sounds great.
All right. You take care. Have a wonderful Hanukkah and a wonderful Christmas, ladies and gentlemen. Ambassador.
Yeah. All right. Fantastic.
See ya.
That's a pretty big time guest you got there, Trento.
Goodbye now. Yeah. What can I tell you? We roll. That's the way we roll.
Well, he's one of your co-authors too.
Yeah.
In the Sharia the Threat book.
All those guys. When the team was assembled, Team B2.
Right.
We had to kind of vote on everybody, or vote if there's a problem. And
yeah, he's like 2 thumbs up. Big time.
Yeah. So everybody agreed. Everybody agreed that this is the team. So it worked out real well. We got 1 minute left. Is there anything insane that we can close our show with today?
Yeah, here we go. We're right on the screen here for you, Tom.
Jeb Bush announces he'll actively explore.
Thinking about.
Can you not actively?
Oh my God, that is a crazy coincidence.
Why?
Because I am actively exploring a run in 2016.
I was thinking about considering it.
You were thinking
about considering it. No, I wasn't actively exploring. I'm just thinking about considering it.
Oh, you're thinking about possibly considering actively exploring running for president.
Right.
And you,
I am passively actively exploring running.
Well, Jeb Bush is actively considering to explore. Oh my God. You know why, ladies and gentlemen? 3 idiots we have here. 3, count them. Jeb, you were a great governor. You're a great guy. All of that. Don't run for president of the United
Especially
States.
your insane stance on immigration.
Yeah, and
it's an act of love.
All right, goodbye. We got to go. See you tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. Area Gozi, Israel briefing. See ya. Bye.